Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I got a kind of important narration to do, and I got to cover three things here first that all feed into it. But let's start here. So, I posted two videos about the Miami alien, and you can see this is from yesterday, 2 days ago. When I first put it up, they yellowed the video and demonetized it. They did the same thing with this one here, but then they greened it. They did a person did a review and decided it was monetizable. And you can see now this video they also did that too here, right? They reviewed it and said it was monetizable. Now, when I first put out this video, I think about things that are in it that might be flagged by their bots, right? Sometimes it's just a mistake. Sometimes it's like just a random kind of thing that they do. Sometimes they just do it randomly to channels, I think, the bots or whatever. But the thing that stuck out for me was this Miami alien story. Like, I looked at it and maybe some of the footage, but, the footage was being used, so the bots knew what the footage was because so many people were posting it. And so I looked at everything that was in it, and the only thing that made sense to me that got flagged was the Miami alien story. And then I posted the same thing in the title here, and it got flagged again. And so they were flagging the Miami alien story for no, apparent reason because it was being covered by mainstream media. And it was relatively hard to believe, right? I mean, the story itself was relatively hard to believe. But whatever reason, it was being censored by YouTube. And there's various ways of censoring. And so when they yellow one of these videos and you have to wait for a review, that means you don't get to the subject matter as quick as, other people are getting to it. And so you miss out on a lot of views and things because people move on from a story, right? Also, another way to censor is I often find I can't put in the title some of the essential things about what my video is about because they'll immediately yellow it and, I have to wait for a review. So, the title of my videos could be better or better for the video, but YouTube makes it so that only certain people get to cover certain topics, right? And if they can delay anything, if they can, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to ban the video or demonetize it. They just have to delay it a little bit, right? They have to rig the board against you. And this is happening, but it's, fairly clear to me that they're censoring this Miami alien story, which I'm not going to cover today. I don't think there's anything more to say about it. But that seems really weird because it seems like a story that, was more of a distraction at first than anything else. But then there was the weird tornado they had, and then, everything else that went with it. So that's the first thing I want to cover. The second thing I want to cover here is congratulations, it's a new world, welcome. So this video was recommended to me. I'm not a follower of Tucker Carlson on Twitter. I don't know who I'm following. It's not very many people. But every morning, Twitter recommends tweets to me. And sometimes they put put pockets of the future in it. And it confuses me because I think it's a tweet that I've posted or some kind of response. And so I didn't understand this one this morning. And it said pockets of the future, Tucker Carlson or something. I thought it was a video I did. And I clicked on it, and it came up to Tucker Carlson's page here, right? And so it says, congratulations, it's a new world, welcome. And he's saying that to Don Lemons. He's retweeting a Don Lemons. He calls him Don Lemon. And he says, I've heard you, and today I'm back. Bigger, bolder, freer. My new media company's first project is the Don Lemon Show, the exact name of his CNN show. It will be available to everyone easily, whatever and wherever you want it, streaming on the platforms where the conversations are happening. And you'll find it first on X, the biggest space for free speech in the world. I know more than ever that we need a place for honest debate and discussion without all the hall monitors, and this is just being the beginning. So stay tuned. these guys are all entering in to the truther realm, like in their own way. Don Lemons did it, Chris Cuomo's did it, Tucker Carlson did it. They're all amateurs because they don't, come from they come from a place of legitimacy, artificial legitimacy. Let's go check out Don Lemon's page here. There he is. There's the post. There's nothing new here. Best of luck, Maddie. Some personal news. I've decided to leave MSNBC. And so he's got something else going on here. He hasn't posted anything. I'm glad he did because he's great to mock. Look at him looking there. But he was a guy who went after truthers and independent voices, and now he's trying to become one. And Tucker Carlson's welcomed him to the club of fired mainstream news people. So then there was this. UN temporarily closes Geneva headquarters due to lack of funds. And this is an article that was sent to me originally. Well, here it says here. United Nations European headquarters in Geneva, known as the Palace of Nations, will remain closed until 12th January due to a liquidity crisis within the organization. Decision has been taken to the economize heating, electricity, and maintenance costs. Has been taken, which is a way to. This is like when they say this has been taken, the decision has been made. That's the way they're using that word there. But they're having heating, electricity, and maintenance problems they can't afford. They can't afford their heating and electrical bills. So surging energy prices have constrained the UN's budget, necessitating the palace's closure from December 20th, 2012. So the United Nations can't figure out a way to pay its electrical bills. And that tells you everything you need to know. And I was just going to show you this article, but the person who sent it to me sent it via this, I don't know what you would call her, possible truther. And she, I want to comment on, her name is Truthseeker 01011. This is another amateur hour type thing.
Oh, guess who's broke and shutting their doors temporarily? The UN. That is correct. Let me just show you the article from Brussels Times. The UN temporarily closes Geneva headquarters due to lack of funds. Aww, poor UN. I know, aren't we all just so sad? I mean, my heart is breaking for those Epstein-type bureaucrats who basically, traffic children in Yugoslavia and women. And there was a whistleblower who came through, and then they changed their charges for human trafficking and lessened it to just violations, because you can't have the truth come out with the UN. But the funny part is the UN is actually out of funds because it costs too much money to run the electricity in their buildings. So their own policies are basically shutting their own doors. Kind of like the entire liberal agenda that's kind of falling apart at the seams, don't you guys think? But it gets even better for the UN because Doug Porter of Canada decided to make a petition for Canada to pull out of the UN. Leslyn Lewis, who's a conservative member in the federal level government, decided to sponsor that petition. Now it's still going and it will be going, and I will have all of the links so you can sign the petition as well. And I know you guys are saying we're not making any difference, like everything is moving slow, but let me just show you this year's Davos meeting and what they want to achieve. So Klaus Schwab's little World Economic Forum annual meeting this year will be about rebuilding trust. Yeah, oh Schwabi. Are you realizing that we don't trust you? That we don't trust your little global leaders, such as Justin Trudeau? Yeah, there will be no trust to rebuild because we will never trust snakes and rats and parasites like yourself. And after we're done pretty much taking the UN down, we will come after the World Economic Forum because I do not feel like paying my Canadian pension plan into the World Economic Forum, which is, by the way, where our CPP is going. So, to my American American friends, there are a bunch of petitions as well for the United States to pull out of the United Nations. Australia has already started something. New Zealand is about to follow suit. And a bunch of other countries in Europe want to do the same. So for everybody saying that we are not making enough progress, we are. It is just a really giant ship, and it takes some time to turn around a big ship like this. But we will do it, and we will achieve and succeed in our plans. Why? Because we are so sick and tired of these globalists not only telling us how to live, but what to put in our bodies.
So what happened was one of my viewers sent me this link to this person's bit there, and I started watching it. Of course, it's not my what I think about this situation, right? In terms of we ain't fixing anything, right? So I stopped watching after first couple sentences. I went and searched it for myself and found the lone article about this, and kind of interesting. And I was going to cover it. I covered it on my Journey series because the UN thing for me is always tied with the heartfulness debacle. And this person was sent to me. It was a person that, at least did some of the meditation for a while. I don't know if he's still doing I don't know if he started doing the gratefulness when I, split away from the heartfulness tragedy. But he wrote again and said, I think he said, well, she's really enthusiastic. So I went back and watched the rest of it. And I want to cover it in a way. I don't want to be insulting to this person because, she's doing whatever. She's a younger person, and there's lots of people out there, and it's good that you have to go through your stages as a truther and as a person, right? You go through your different phases as you get older in your life, and hopefully you're maturing and you're evolving as a person. And there's lots of people in the truth community that can't deal with the reality that there's no fixing the system, that the system is what it is. It's not something where it's, there's some redeeming element to it. It is a corrupt and broken and dysfunctional system, and the people are the barometer, the biggest barometer. I've said this so much in recent videos. The people being broken and twisted and, wrecked and unfunctional and, like zoo animals and not able to act as natural human beings, disconnected to God, the family breaking down, no real morality, depressed, weak, helpless, and each generation getting worse is an indicator of what this system does, right? The people create the system, and the system creates the people, and we're going in the wrong direction. People are getting worse with each generation, and it's so bad that people can barely function. And this latest generation, with the internet being there, being in the cyber world, being the the centerpiece of their life, they're in the cyber world more than they're in real life, in the real world, can't hold the very basic jobs that you need young people to do at like restaurants, fast food places, things like this, because they can't be in the real world that long and all the things that go with it. They're depressed and they're low function. And so society's failing, and we all know about it. The economy's failing, but it's really the people that are the problem. The people are the indicator. But the system itself has always been corrupt. I talk about this so much. I'm not going to go through it here, right? And so petitions, to be that excited about petitions, well, it's just wishful thinking. There's some magical thinking that happens. It's the whole Alex Jones thing. Got a little bit, I'm going to cover the Alex Jones video game in a bit, too, as well. But what I want to talk about here is wasting time. Time wasted. And when you're young, you don't realize this, right? You don't understand wasting your youth. And it's a plague for all of us because our lives are relatively short. There were a time where people that used to live thousands of years. And you can believe that or not, but you can understand that, the way that our lives are shaped, you have your youth. And your youth is, 20 years or whatever, 18, 20 years. You have your, childhood. You develop quickly. You go, waste a lot of time in school. And then you are being created into a cog in the wheel that you're going to have a job and a role in society. And you are being molded into something. And as you, get into your 20s, you have to assume that role. whatever it is, even if it's a homeless beggar, you have some role or function in the system, right? Whatever that role is. And you start your work, your life's work. And your life work usually sucks because it's not something that's symbiotic with your soul, right? It's just some job you have and you're selling your time for money. And this is where you begin your waste of your life. And I'm not saying you have to avoid this because you have to find some way to obtain income and support yourself and your family and things like this. But it's where your time begins to be wasted. You start wasting your time. And right when that starts off with your career, you usually get married and have kids. So now you have the two biggest aspects of your life, three biggest aspects of your life: your job, your career, your spouse, your significant other, and then your kids, right? And you're doing that all at once. And you're relatively young and immature, and you haven't been trained by society and your family for any of these things, right? You might be trained for your job. You're not trained to be a spouse or a father or mother. And it's overwhelming. And usually you're entitled, especially these kids growing up now, who are oblivious to real life because they spend most of their time on the internet. And so their preparation for the real world isn't there, right? And they have a retreat that they just want to go to and get away from the responsibilities of parenthood and careers and jobs or whatever. But this is, the problem with these, a short human lifespan. And then as you move forward with that, you're overwhelmed and you're just putting out fires, and you're just not able to settle down and connect with God and do any of these things. And before you know it, you're old. And any chance of a spiritual life and connecting to God and thinking about things and having the time and space to to contemplate your life and make decisions and thoughtful decisions. It's just everything's a rushed rat race until you get old. And next thing you know, you're old. And kids today are getting chronic illnesses at an extremely young rate. Of course, the dropping like flies with heart attacks and things like this, cardiac arrest. But it's even before COVID, there was an article about young people having chronic illnesses. And many of my younger viewers were saying, yeah, I got all these things. People in their 20s and 30s. It's, they have poor health on top of having all the rest of these things, right? But think if you lived for 1,000 years, right? You have then maybe 100 years of youth and exploration and doing things. And then you have all this time where you could, create a career and, live life and then, then get married and then you have your kids and then, have this long period of contemplation and spiritual life where you're given back as an elder and things. Like if you had, this is 10 lifetimes. People have just, 1,000 years or 500 years or even 200 years. If you could double your lifespan, everything wouldn't be stuck together and, there wouldn't be this mad rush. And I can say for someone who's, close to being 60, and, I don't feel like 60 and I don't act like 60, but, it's there, my physical body and things. And, I have longevity that runs in my family. All my, both my parents and 3 of my grandparents lived into their 90s. My grandmother lived to 100. There's a lot of that in my family, right? But even with that, I can see the writing on the wall. And when I look back, and I don't have regrets or, I don't have, certainly things I would change and mistakes I've made or whatever. But I look back at every stage of my life, and if I could have known then what I know now and just my orientation to the world, I would do everything so much better and differently. And one of the things that I would, the one thing that I would do the most or focus on the most would be the amount of time I wasted, the amount of time that I just, pissed away. And, it doesn't hit you until you get older. Your body is starting to fail and you can't do what you used to do. And now with everything that's going on in the world, the waste of time, like how much time people have wasted on stupid things. And for all of us that kind of see what's going on, to whatever extent we see what's going on, you have an opportunity to utilize the time at your disposal. You can invest that time in something that will, pay dividends, will have some kind of return on your investment. And any kind of stuff that you do in the truther communities, petitions this girl's talking about. And again, You do whatever you're going to do. I don't care. It's not my problem. But just from my perspective, all that stuff's a waste of time. You're trying to save a system that's already collapsed. That's the whole idea about pockets of the future. And so, what are you going to need on the other side? And there are things available now. The internet, information. There's tools and things that you have. There is, comforts and things that you can enjoy and can help you, in terms of, just the ease of life that you have now. And you can take all of those things that are available now and build some sort of future on the other side of what's going to be a collapse. It doesn't necessarily have to be your future. There's a story in the Sajmark tradition, maybe not even, it's a story the third master used to tell, where there's an old man, a grandfather, and his grandson, and the grandfather's planting fruit trees. And, he's really old at the end of his life, and his grandson said, "Why are you planting these? Because you're not going to be able to eat the fruit." And he said, "No, but you will," right? And so, we've left behind a real mess for the succeeding generations. Each generation has failed the next generation. And, whatever we do moving forward, we can put some of our time into setting up success, not only for other people, young people, but ourselves in some future incarnation. And we could set ourselves up for success in in what we have now in terms of assets. There are assets that we have in our modern day system. We have free time, we have tools, and we have information, we have the internet, like I said, and we have the ability to travel. There's things you can do, people can do in terms of preparing for what's going to happen next. And something's going to happen. It might not happen today, might not happen tomorrow, might not happen for 20 years, but it's going to happen, and it's already happening, right? In terms of a collapse of a system and something new that has to be created. And the biggest problem for people in the truth community is you think you're in a battle with the so-called elite, that you're here to take them down, and you're in kind of a struggle with them, and they're trying to force things on you, and you're trying to take them down and usurp their position, take their power away, whatever. And or you're looking for validation from that very same system. You're looking for people who are, substantive and successful in the system to validate you in some way, and you're looking for external validation for your position and what you're doing, and looking for something to prop you up and feed your energy and your movement and what you're doing and whatever's going on, and you're not going to get that. You're not going to get external validation because, the system is desperate, and we are now the enemy in a way that we weren't before. When I first started doing this, certainly when I started doing this as a job in 2014, and when I was, my family and I were building a homestead in 2004 and 5, and when I started doing meditation in 1993, and as I was able to start expressing a difference of opinion with the official story, which I've been doing for most of my life, even as a younger person. Well, I started doing it, as a full-time job in 2014, 15. I had this YouTube channel for a number of years. Nobody cared about us. We weren't, on the radar. And for a number of years, truthers, I had this channel since 2007, and other people who had, were pushing this movement, even someone like Alex Jones, who was a, COINTELPRO shill or whatever. Nobody cared about us. They just ignored us. And we could do whatever we wanted on the internet. We could say whatever we wanted for the most part. There was very few things that were community guidelines, weren't even a thing on YouTube. Like, I don't remember ever getting a community guideline, and not for truther stuff. And then there was the election in 2016, and all of a sudden the truth community was put on notice, and this term of fake news was put out there. And pressure for censorship started to hit in 2016 and 17. And you could see that they were doing things to close down, to stop the flow of information and to demonize these people. All of us call us crazy conspiracy theorists, right? Because now we are a threat to the system. And they put out a bunch of disinformation agents, and a bunch of, dopes, and stupid people started to be truthers, and they just, contaminated and wrecked the whole movement. And, brought it down to a much lower level and vibratory level. And then, the censorship started, and people were like, well, then it was like a war with social media platforms that people were on, and then, all of it, right? And all the anger, Alex Jones was a big problem to bring this, to make it, emotional and things like this, and take you away from the essence of what the truth is. And the truth is that the system is collapsing. And systems and empires collapse, right? And you can get into blame, or you could get into all kinds of ways that you want to, magical thinking about how you're going to save the system. But if you're on the Titanic, right, it doesn't matter if the captain screwed up and, and hit the iceberg, or that the boat itself was poorly constructed, or if there was some conspiracy or plot by the owners of the boats that to take down their rivals, J.P. Morgan Chase or whatever these theories are, right? Your job is to survive the collapse. I mean, it's just that simple, right? Like you want to make sure you don't go down and die in the sinking of the Titanic. Doesn't matter about the so-called controllers, elite, whatever it is. Doesn't matter about all their deviant behaviors. As the system collapses, none of those things matter, because the system takes care of that. The collapse of the system takes care of the people who were temporarily in power. It was a cabal of people, generational wealth, and whatever they were and whatever they are. Eventually, they'll be disempowered. And once that happens, or when somebody dies, and many of them will die, and their movement of control will die off with it, they don't matter to you anymore. So why are you paying attention to them, right? Because you're looking at them as the problem. That's how the truth community has been focused on the so-called elite as the problem. When you should be looking at yourself as the problem, right? Like you're the problem that you can solve. And in terms of the elite, they can't survive without the system, their corrupt, deviant system. Their whole movement can't survive without it, right? That's why they're trying to prop it up. That's why they're doing everything in their power to keep the system going. And they can't do it because it's, they don't really have power. Like they don't have any real control over their own destiny. And just like everybody else, they're going to die, right? Everything and everybody's going to die. There's an ending. There's an ending to things. And, you have power for a short period of time in your life in different areas. And then that power dissipates. And you can see it as you get older. You understand this. Things that you once had start to disappear, right? Whether it's your cognitive abilities, your physical abilities, or all of those things, right? And things that you used to be able to, do very easily, you can no longer do at all. You have potential when you're young, and you actualize some of that potential when you're in your prime years, and then you're lamenting the lost potential you had and that you didn't use that potential for something better. You've ignored your inevitable death. And so thinking about the controllers as the problem becomes your problem, right? Becomes your, a blockage to you making the right decisions and focusing on the right things, which is that you're the problem, right? You're the problem that you need to solve. And you can potentially survive without the system. And you can build something new. You can be a part of building something new, right? A pocket of the future. That's what these channels that I have and these, videos I make is, the essential premise of this channel. So to some extent, everybody sees that the system is possibly collapsing. It's heading towards collapse, right? There's something, that's inevitably going to happen unless we do something to change that outcome, right? This is the direction we're heading. We're going off the cliff. And if we don't turn or steer or do something, in a different direction, we're going to go over the cliff. Everyone can see that to some extent. And so why not let that happen? If you're seeing that the system is, as evil as you think it is, and the controllers are there desperately trying to save the system that they're empowered, that they're in control of, and you think they're the problem, then just let the system collapse. Just let it happen. This is what I've said years ago, right? Like they're taken care of because the system's collapsing, and when the system collapses, they're gone. So then what are you going to do with your time? Like if you're not focused on them or the system, what are you going to do? Like what are you going to do with the this asset of free time, your asset of your remaining time, right? and energy. You know, I was talking about this a little bit with the Aaron Rodgers thing yesterday, and I've talked about this so much. It's their fault because they're liars that there is a truth community, right? But the liars aren't ever going to admit to that, and you're never going to catch them. You're never going to, like it's stupid. You're looking at people who are, in many cases, on a lower level of consciousness and evolution than you. You think they're higher because they're celebrities. You think they're higher because they have power and position, and you're looking at the system as a way to value your life versus their life, and that's not the correct way to look at it. The system isn't an arbiter of who's more evolved, who's more important, who's more, more important in the sense of the, doing what needs to be done to evolve as a race, as a species, and, move the human project, this experiment further. There are assets, right? There are people who have the ability to change and adapt and to operate on a higher level of consciousness. And the people who can't do that, there's nothing for them, right? There's no future for them, right? There's no, people who can't evolve and change and go up to a higher level, particularly spiritually. The main focus of this channel is to connect to God internally and spend time doing that, right? Connecting to your soul's path. And then you see the real value your life has and the value you have as a person, as a spiritual being, not to be judged by your material validation, right? So if you spend all your time trying to catch these people and, punish these people and let's get the elite, let's stop their, deviant behaviors, well, the system, just let the system collapse. And so forget about those people. They're lesser thans, right? They're people who are on a lower trajectory, and they haven't learned the lessons that power and money and success and these things. Many of us have already lived these lives in the past. We understand that that's not why we're here. Their reasoning for being here is they've, gotten lost in some Stockholm syndrome, or some version of a simulation that we're all stuck in, right? A video game that we're stuck in. And they're buying into collecting as many of the worthless, stuff that you grab in a video game, like jewels and, weapons and power and things like this. You're stockpiling things for your avatar, and then your life, the video game ends or you die and whatever, and all that stuff cease to have any value in the real world. And, in the real world, this case is your soul and your soul's life and your soul's path. You're thinking that you're trying to win some sort of game down here, some sort of imaginary competition. And so when you start figuring out that there's some sort of deception, you start going down this rabbit hole with this idea that the people running the system are some sort of masterminds, and they're giving you clues to the truth, like you're going through this, this treasure hunt of Illuminati treasure hunt, and you're trying to figure out all the things, and so you see it here, you see it there, you see clues here. Oh, they put this in this movie. Look at the symbolism here. And you're just, going down this, the show Lost, where every time there's a resolution to a mystery, they give you 3 more unresolved problems, and you spend all your time trying to figure out the puzzle, when you realize that they're not masterminds and they're not in control. They don't understand the real goal of life. They don't understand the real purpose here. And they've just created this elaborate distraction for themselves and everybody else to get you focused away from why you're truly here, what your true path is, what your true reason for being is, right? And once you find that, and then you can start using your time effectively to achieve a real goal. Like, what's your real goal in life? Why are you here? What's your purpose? What's your soul's reason for your existence? What's your soul-driven existence? A book I wrote years and years ago, like a workbook that's, never going to be seen. It'll never have the light of day, right? But in terms of the idea of the thing, which I present here regularly, you have a soul-driven path, a path that your soul, wants you to be on, and then your material life falls into place around that, right? And then you start feeling congruent, right? You start using your time effectively and doing what you need to do, taking advantage of what we have now for what you're going to need in the future. And I don't mean just material things, because that's the least of it, right? See, the number one thing that controllers want to do is stop all of us from manifesting a future where they're no longer in power. And the way that we do that is we, start slowly remove ourselves away from the system and all of its, entanglements, all of its, impressions and things that go with it, all the things that are distractions to our real purpose. If people were embracing their soul's path, then this system would never have been created. If our ancestors who are, stayed true to their soul's path, and the Aboriginal people and the tribal people and the village people who all, the village-based, intergenerational communities and things like this, and the tribal communities had stayed true to what they knew to be the way of the appropriate way of living, and didn't get sucked into or forced into the system, the beastly system, then this thing would have never happened, right? But everybody bought into it. Everyone, helped create the system. You see it with this younger generation. Their internal worlds and what they've been given as reality, and whatever you want to call this liberal agenda, this, this Hollywood morality, this, internet morality, right? These things that they believe is quite different. Like, we can't even have conversations and connect with younger people because our lives, our internal lives, and the stories we have, and the way that we view the world, the lens in which we view the world is so much different than theirs. They've been completely indoctrinated and programmed by this, the internet and their school system and all these things that go with it, and they're changing this curriculum. And parents, they won't connect with you. Their kids can't connect with their parents and don't want to connect with them, which has always been a problem with America. It's even worse now. And they're almost like completely oppositional to what you believe reality to be. Anyways, this is going longer than I wanted, but, I always talk about this. Finding God, connecting God internally, and you have to, transcend your religion to do that, which most people aren't willing to do. And you have to, find a sort of a dynamic aspect to your personality, your inner world, some kind of energy, some sort of, flame or light within you that's, helps you, break free from all the things that you think are real life, right? That are a part of the system, right? A part of your everyday, whatever it is, right? You have to find something like a soul-driven aspect to your existence that's there. And, there's no way to articulate this, right? But it's connecting to God internally, it's praying, and, there's some kind of thing that's compelling you from inside yourself to break free from your entrapment, your slavery, right? And I don't know if everyone has that. Like, you have you're a worm in a cocoon, a caterpillar in a cocoon, and you want to break free and fly and, evolve into something else, right? You want to blossom into your full potential. And I don't know how many people have it or how many people don't, but it's the people that have it that are, everyone else is just, like an NPC that's going to be, taken off the board when the system collapses, right? And the people that do have it and, who are suppressing it or scared of it or whatever, they're the people that have to, they have an opportunity here. But you're not going to get that by focusing on the controllers and, the truth community has become a joke, a joke within a joke, right? And now there's a dynamic, a relationship between the mainstream media and the, these companies and truthers. It's a, an abusive relationship. And the more you focus on that relationship, the more time you're just going to waste, right? It's just a waste of time. And this is what I'm talking about, amateur hour. We have a limited period of time before your inevitable death and the inevitable collapse of this system. The clock is ticking, tick-tock, right? Tick-tock, whatever. And so, how are you going to spend that time? And I'm not, telling people what to do. Like, I don't know what you should do, right? Personally, but you do. Like, inside you, you know what to do. Like, everyone knows what to do. Everyone knows what they're doing wrong. Everyone knows what they're, people know that they have to stop drinking or stop, whatever it is, right? They know the things that are hurting them. Stop hanging out with people that are, negative. Breaking free from these, relationships and dynamics, and people know what they have to do, right? And, it's inside you. And figuring out what that is, that's the real art that most people don't have a clue how to do anything with, right? So they just focus on something external like the controllers or, whatever it might be in terms of just, having some imaginary goal and something to get out of bed for every day, because otherwise they would have no purpose, right? So, but it's just all illusionary, and, deep down everybody kind of knows it, right? And, we have to be a part of the system. We can't abandon the system completely. We need money and jobs and things like this. But, we have to be able to put some of our extra, our free time and our extra resources into something else, right? One thing is still here, but it's on its way out, and we can prepare for what's coming next. And, the controllers, they can't transition into something new. Like they can't, they're not allowed to make the leap from the system they now control to whatever's going to happen next. And so they're already taken care of, like I said, but you can, right? People can make that leap. People can, live through what's happening now and be a part of building something better on the other side. Okay, so let's get into the other stuff here. This was part of the tornadoes there. There was a house that would flip. This house flips over here. I mean, that tornado is in Panama City. Apparently they have more tornadoes there than I originally thought. Oh, this is wonderful. One of my viewers mentioned this in a comment. New World Order Wars, the official Alex Jones video game. The guy is, of course, 1776 and all his crap. And, the trailer, let's watch the trailer because he's trying to find any possible way to, if you're giving him money, you're technically giving money to those families that won a billion dollar judgment against him. So, and the government.
First came Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, and Super Mario Brothers. And now, the ultimate retro nostalgia throwback game. I present to the world Alex Jones's New World Order Wars. They're turning the friggin' frogs gay. I'll eat your ass.
He's, this is where he's kind of admitting that he's a caricature, right? His lawyers talked about how he was a performance artist when he was going through his divorce hearings, and that he's doing performance art, which is what this is, right? And performance art isn't truth, right? It's, he's a Stephen Colbert like character, like from the Stephen Colbert show, who is, basically mocking the truth community by, exaggerating this exaggerated character.
You Nazi scum! Let's
Bezos
free the patriots and defeat the globalist tech geeks.
We are going to defeat the globalists very bigly.
So Trump is in a cape here. So Trump is one of the heroes here.
This game is mostly peaceful.
Woo!
I'm going to lower the world's population.
Bill Gates.
Oh, big deal. I'm taking you down, rapist.
I did not have sexual relations with that saxophone.
Download it now at AlexJonesGame.com, because as we all know, anything badass gets censored.
So, kind of great, but, in a, these, I guess it's on Rumble. Kind of great in a, a shill kind of a way. Why America Hates Its Children's. This is children's. This is, from a Business Insider, posted on Microsoft. Last summer, my kids and I spent a month in Greece where their grandfather lives. Time and again, I was struck in public by the attitude toward children I seldom encountered in America. Unequivocal support. So I guess it's going to go into this, but America, we socialize our children to see strangers not as helpers, but as threats. Worried parents scour neighborhoods for loiterers and miscreants, and neighborhoods routinely call the police when parents let their kids explore outside. And when kids aren't being treated as endangered, they're often viewed as a nuisance. How many articles have I read about whether children should be allowed on airplanes or at weddings or in restaurants? Blah, 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 blah. We all, we get it. This is Indian bars protests that support the Palestinians. Analysts say a pro-Israel shift helps at home. There was these Jewish guys who were living in like tunnels in New York. You guys probably all know about this already. And that's a weird story. I don't know if I have time to. I'm not going to cover that today, but this thing's just getting weirder and weirder. But this is something India has cultivated a relationship, and Heartfulness, the defunct Guru Daji, the guy who's wrecked the Sajmarg meditation that I do, at least the his version of it. He had Modi at his ashram there, and they've gotten all political, and they've are really into the UN now, which is all part of that thing. And they're pushing this idea that of the official story because they want to have India and Israel have some sort of relationship now. And, all that implies. I saw this on Facebook. One of my friends posted this. Wolf Blitzer, actor and producer. Skyfall, The Campaign, Mission Impossible. Erin Burnett, writer, producer, actress. Edge of Tomorrow, The Incredible Burt Wonderstone. They often appear in movies and TV shows, these anchors, which makes them actors. And, of course, they're not trustworthy anyway, but when they appear in these, crappy movies and things, it's a big part of that stuff, right? Okay, so Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I don't know what he's polling at, but he's just had a disaster. His Israel take torpedoed his chances, which I talked about a long time ago. But the New York Post always likes to crap all over this guy, which, is kind of funny. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. bails on his own birthday party after celeb guests distance themselves from the bash. So he had a birthday party that was supposed to be a fundraiser, and then they said all these people were going to come that didn't come, and they were not A-list celebrities. And Mike Tyson, who he did an interview with, said he might come to the birthday party, but he couldn't, he couldn't come to this one because of a scheduling issue, but he said he wouldn't come to a fundraiser. And all the rest of the people said they're Biden supporters. And they weren't great. Like they were, wherever the Dionne Warwick and I can't even remember Andrea Botticelli and Martin Sheen. Well, he didn't even want a birthday party anyway. Last week, we reported that a PAC supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. White House run had announced a slate of celebrities were expected at a glitzy birthday party for the candidate, only for the alleged guests to fall over themselves to publicly announce that they never had any intention of attending the bash in the first place. Now we hear that the birthday boy himself won't be attending either. So there. These guys. And this dude. And then this one, Pete Davidson was high on ketamine at Aretha Franklin's funeral, told family he'd like to pay his RESPCECTs. He admits in a new special that he was high in ketamine when he attended her funeral. I'm embarrassed. I was out and about like that. That's not cool. And the Turbo Fonzarelli of being on the influence of drug, which is used to treat depression. But he's self-medicating. So he's one of the original ghouls. So I forgot to, there was something I wanted to say in the introduction that I forgot, which I'll add here. There is, a social dynamic where you can pursue somebody else's lies, right? You can try to catch somebody in a lie. You think somebody's like cheating on you or lying to you, or, someone's deceived you or cheated, whatever it is, cheated you or something. And, or they just lied to you and, has some ramifications to your life. And you spend a lot of time catching them. And you have to present information. You have to present receipts and documentation that proves that they're lying. And if you don't have a way to enforce some sort of punishment or extract something, enforce some kind of consequence, they can just pretend they never lied, or just even if they're caught dead to right, they can lie back to you, right? They can lie to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. More often than not, what you see with the controllers is they don't talk about the lie at all. They don't address it. They don't answer for it. They don't even acknowledge the question. They don't acknowledge people's opinions of it. And what they do is find something to attack on you, to attack about you. Or they, attack your strengths, which is even a new thing politically. Karl Rove started this, where they would actually attack somebody's strength and turn it into a weakness. And so there's ways that they can just muddy the waters of reality, right? You see this now with the Jimmy Kimmel, Aaron Rodgers debate, which I've been covering on my other channel. And, as truthers, you have to understand that there is no system out there. There's no power out there. There's no judicial power or freedom of, the press or media power or, religious power, anything out there. Village-based power or family power where everybody in the family or the village condemns the person and, everybody aligns against them. Maybe even not even a negative way, but in a intervention type way where you need your family and you need your village. And, they all go after you. You have to sort of cave and admit to it and, beg forgiveness and these things, right? Where the system puts together some sort of, consequences and, acknowledgement of your behavior. And you are confronted with that behavior and you have to acknowledge it and vow to change. And the mainstream system's never going to do that with the truth community. They're never going to acknowledge you're right. They're never going to acknowledge that we've been right quite often. They're never going to acknowledge they've been caught. They're never going to acknowledge the truth. They're never going to try to, work to change. They're not going to acknowledge your anger or craziness other than to demonize you. They're not going to justify, like I said before, the reason there are conspiracy theories is because there are conspiracies and there are liars and manipulators and cheaters and bad people, especially the ones running our system, but all along the everywhere in the world. So people conspire to do bad things, but they've made it now where you are, justifiably calling these things out, and you're the problem. You're the problem for acknowledging the bad behaviors of these people, and you're trying to take the system down, and you're enemy of the state, and all these things. And that's the way it's always going to go. And so any element of the truth community that's trying to work to change the system, is trying to work for acknowledgement, is trying to work for, some mea culpa coming from the powers that be, that's never going to happen. And the reason for this is truth is kryptonite to the system. The system is based in illusion and lies and perception and deluded perception, deluded reality, a shared reality, and people manifesting and keeping this illusion going through their own buying into the illusion. And so there can be no truth. There can be no, come to God moment, right? There can't be anything that's going to be acknowledged as truth because that'll take down the system. If they were going to tell you the truth, they would say, this is a bad system. It's only going to get worse. We're only going to do more damage to the planet, and we're only going to become more helpless, weak, and, pathetic. And we're going to have the inability to turn this thing around because people will be so wrecked psychologically and physically and mentally, spiritually, that if we don't get rid of the system now, it's going to be a disaster. Like this thing is, we're going in the wrong direction. It's just going to get worse. The damage is going to get worse, and the problems that are going to need to be fixed, and reversing the negative aspects of the system, and retraining everybody, and everybody reclaiming their natural, humanness and things. They would be honest. They say, we gotta get rid of this system right away, regardless of the consequences, and everyone else can, figure out a way to deal with it on the other side, survival and whatever, but the system has to go. I mean, that's if they were being honest, they would admit that. And we would admit it as well. And no one wants to hear that. No one wants that to be reality. I've been covering this for a while. I've known about this more and more, but, specifically in the last 3 or 4 years, when I saw that there was just no way to fix the system and that it's collapsing is what's best for everybody. But we don't want that, and, I don't want it. And so that's our reality. And so we have this time available to make it okay for the system to collapse for ourselves personally. We can prepare and we can adjust ourselves and make ourselves into the kind of people that could live in a system other than the one we have and the one that we're going to have. We can adjust ourselves to the way things are going to be in the future. That's what pockets of the future means. We can spend this time in, at least being able to salvage some things for ourselves and be able to make this transition. It's a difficult one, and very few people will make it, and it's really mostly younger people. But we can set, ourselves and other, human beings up for the future, realizing what's going on and realizing what's best and what's inevitable, and accept it and prepare for it and be grateful for it, and find some way that it'll be, for some of us, it'll be better. And some of us will thrive in the, apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic times, and that's, going to be necessary for the human race to continue. Otherwise, it's just, they'll try something else, right? The human beings will disappear and there'll be something else here, and, whatever that is. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.